So what I hear you saying is that blacks had a preference for crack cocaine.
The system said the blacks had a preference for crack
and whites
cocaine.
seem to be having a preference for the powder
cocaine.
And because you were giving out more time for the same amount of crack than you were for powder, blacks end up getting more time than whites for doing virtually the same thing.
And let me point out this issue. Whites are mostly prosecuted in state courts where they do have parole. Blacks are mostly prosecuted in federal court where they don't have parole.
So again, you got another reason for disparity. And is it true that the prosecutor makes the decision about where the case goes?
That's right.
The police bring in a case, and the police don't decide what court it goes to.
The prosecutor decides.
The prosecutor decides. He's going to call up his friend, the U.S. attorney, and say, man, I got a case I'm sending to you.
And you know, it's sad because if you look at crack cocaine in the neighborhood on the streets, if you look at crack cocaine, I never known too many crack cocaine, people that kill, rape, or done anything. But
in terms of violence, the most violence they're perpetrating is on themselves.
On their own
self. They do a good bit of lying and stealing.
Right, they degrade themselves.
Right.
But when you get into the powder cocaine, which is worth a lot of money, that's where you get your violence and things. But you're not getting the time.
Let me ask you a question, and this is more of a philosophical question, I guess. I know I've heard and I believe that there are these racial disparities, but are we placing too much emphasis on the injustice and not enough emphasis on how to encourage young men and women to do something other than the sort of low-level drug dealing and usage?
Yes, we're not placing enough emphasis on education. We need more drug treatment centers. We need more affordable housings, because when the inmates come out,
where do they go? They get $25 in a bus ticket in Georgia.
Well,
it won't take you very far.
That's right, and then you have people that don't want to hire them, and that's why the recidivism rates are so high. Because see, we need a reentry program for inmates.
What do you think about this? I've often had the idea that if you come out and you serve all your time and you can stay crime-free for 2, 3, 5 years, you ought to be able to drop that felony designation off your back.
Well, I agree with that, too.
You think it could ever happen given the political situation in America right now?
Well, you got people like me advocating justice, and if that's what I need to do, I would take care of that. It's just like we also need to bring that after you do your time, give us our voting rights back.
You know, that's highly controversial, and I believe it's going to get even more controversial as we move into what? 2007 and the renewal of what, people? The Voting Rights Act.
It's amazing. A lot of people don't realize that they have to vote to determine whether or not we can vote. It's not given to us. And I think, coming up in 2006 and 2007, they need to just get rid of it and don't give a 20-year leeway before we come back and vote on it. They're already trying to change the Constitution, try to continue to put amendments to the Constitution to benefit them.
Do you think that the folks who are getting sentenced to these very long terms in prison understand the connection between voting and how long they're getting in prison?
But if they don't understand it, they got enough time to understand it.
Well, unfortunately, by the time they get that time, it's too late to do a lot about it, because in some of these southern states, once you've been convicted, you may never vote again.
Yeah, but you can pass it on to your children before they get out there and get in trouble.
Yeah, I wish we didn't have to wait quite that long.
I agree with you 100%.
You know, we came close in the Congress at one point to doing away with the crack powder disparity, didn't we?
We definitely.
Came real close.
October 1995.
October 1995. You want to tell the audience what happened in October 95?
In October 1995, Congress basically verbally agreed to change the to make the crack cocaine and the powder cocaine uniformity, meaning that
Same
you go,
sentence.
the same sentence, you go get the same sentence for everything.
100 pounds of crack, 100 pounds of powder, same thing.
I told 1995, basically back in May, they verbally agreed to do it. The inmates was excited. And,
I believe it was Senator Patrick Leahy from Vermont.
Yeah, Leahy
on the Senate
on
Judiciary Committee who was leading that effort.
Yeah.
And something happened.
Yeah, what happened was I was working in at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida at the time, and I was the Special Operations Response Team Lieutenant. And what happened when they didn't pass it, that's when everything went up in smoke. And what I mean by that is...
You were working for the Federal Bureau of Prisons at that time.
Correct. The first...
And when they reneged on that deal...
They reneged on the deal, and all of a sudden...
Prisoners rebelled.
They start uprising, they start burning the prisons. They start out in Memphis. I think they went to Talladega. They went to Marianna, Florida, burning the prisons, and because they were upset, Janet Reno came out and told them it was going to pass, and everybody was excited. And
we lost control of the Senate, didn't we?
Yeah, we lost. Yeah, that's another reason.
And the way the Senate is set up, once you lose the majority, you lose the chairmanship. Patrick Leahy lost the chairmanship of the Judiciary Committee, and that was all she wrote, as my grandmother would say.
And I had an opportunity to fight in the ride.
You fought on which side?
Well, I was fighting with the Bureau of Prisons.
Okay.
But I was uncomfortable knowing that I was going into a hostile situation, knowing that the inmates, I knew what they was fighting for. I knew why they was upset. But at the same time, I had to get control and order.
Mm-hmm. So your heart was kind of with the inmates,
because I understood.
But your job and your professional responsibility was to keep
And it was basically like, if I can only talk to you, we can go about this another way. We can start calling Congress. We can start the pen. We can get our families out there that, to call the congressman and tell them who to vote for. But I guess, locked up for a long period of time, and you felt like...
I think what's surprising to me is the extent to which I didn't realize that folk inmates would be following the political discourse that carefully.
Yeah. Well, it affects the inmates. It affects whether they can get their freedom or not. As a matter of fact, you can get an inmate on this show, and they can run circles around me about the law. Because, see, they follow this.
And they have time.
They have time. I receive so many letters every day and say, Lieutenant General, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? I done started telling the inmates, do some of my research.
Now, there was recently a case in the Supreme Court, was there not, that sort of attacked the
Blakely? The Blakely case?
The federal guidelines a little bit. What did that case decide, and what impact is it likely to have?
Well, the case... it was the Blakely case, and what happened, right, the Blakely person was, went to a jury, and the jury convicted them of a certain, say for instance, I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
Say for instance, you're the jury, and you convict this person for 50 grams of cocaine.
Okay.
Great. That's that's what you convict them for. But the prosecutors get with the judge, call this enhancement of what the person done in the past. And so... Prior record. Yeah, prior record. So,
fail to cooperate.
Yeah, what you convicted the person for might get no more than 10 years. But once the prosecutors get with the judge and they get with this enhancement law, they can give you 30 years. So they call that unconstitutional because, see, the jury convicted you of 50 grams of cocaine.
And the jury didn't get a chance to rule on those enhancement factors.